For more, we can speak to Marc Damon. He's a contributor to PSG. Talk hello to you. Marc, you're joining us from New York. I'm just curious, was there a PSG fan zone in the Big Apple?
Well, thank you for having me. Yes, there was. Down in New York City, there's a PSG club, New York. They have a bar down there called the Football Factory. And after the victory, they all flooded into the streets of Manhattan. So the scenes you were not nearly what you were seeing, obviously, in Paris, but New York, and I've been down there a few times too. It's a very loyal. They've suffered with everyone else, so it was a really cool experience to see those fans celebrating in the streets of New York. So yeah, it was a party over here too.
All right, and Marc, you're appropriately dressed. We're not expecting a neutral analysis here, but give us your best takeaway, your best
not really.
takeaways from that game in Munich. It looked so one-sided. PSG dominating possession, so many shots, and Inter Milan's defense just overwhelmed in the end.
Yeah, and this game going into it was the oldest team in the competition in Inter Milan versus the youngest team in the competition in Paris Saint-Germain, and the question was going to be which sort of age, experience or youth, which would win out. And PSG were very much allowed to play their game from the very beginning. It was very obvious that Inter did not have answers for what PSG were able to do to them tactically with their different skill players up front, Kavica, Kvaratskhelia, Desiree Doué, 19 years old, scoring 2 goals, assisting on 1. Ousmane Dembele, obviously one of the
so Marc,
favorites for the Ballon
just to
d'Or.
step in there, Desiree Doué, 19 years old, that performance, no one as young as him has done that before in a Champions League final. It looks like he has a very bright future.
Well, he became the youngest player in history to have multiple goals in a Champions League final, and he was signed obviously in the summer from Stade Rennes. He really struggled at the beginning. He didn't really see a lot of playing time up until about November, December. But once he sort of got his footing, he became irresistible. And you would watch him dominate Ligue 1 matches, cup matches, and you were wondering, could he bring this to the big stage? Could he bring this to a Champions League, big knockout game? And he brought it in the biggest game possible. I mean, just an absolute dominant performance by Desiree Doué. And they were chasing him all night and could not catch him, could not stop him, could not really slow him down. And that second goal he scores off the counter, that was really the end of the match, of the actual competitive phase of that match. And, you're showing them right now. There's the emotions that came out from the fans and from the players too. It was quite spectacular to see this many years of struggle and this many years of just agony and wanting and waiting for this moment to happen and not actually ever knowing if it would. To see it happen, it really couldn't have happened to a fan base more deserving than ours.
Yeah, and as you point out, it took so long to get here. This is the first ever Champions League title for PSG. Now they are king of the hill, and with their youth, it looks like they might be around for some time. What does this mean for the future? Are we looking at a new powerhouse?
Well, I think you are. Now, I've said in the past in my shows that the Champions League is the hardest competition to win in sports because there's so many variables that go into it. And, sometimes as PSG's fans have learned from the past, a bad 5-10 minutes can sink you. And this team is as prepared to be a long-term European power as they have ever been. Their midfield is all young. Vitinha is 26. João Neves is 19 years old. Fabian Ruiz, I believe, is 28. It's a very young, fairly young. Defensively, you have Hakimi, who's young. Nuno Mendes is young. Willian Pacho is 22. So this team is built to have a good now 4 to 5 years run of being at the top of European football for sure.
And does credit there go to the Qatari ownership?
Oh yeah, and when they came in 2011, they put a lot of investment into this club, and you could always talk about the sort of the way that they did it at the beginning with the sponsorship deals and how that sort of, there have been controversies about how Qatar has run this club, but you can't argue that they don't care. They absolutely care. They're invested in the success and failure of this club. And they tried so many different versions of this team to try to get to this point. And it's sort of an irony that it was the sort of lesser known players. It was sort of the more team concept that Luis Enrique and really Luis Campos, their sporting director, put together in the last 2-3 years to really make up for the departure of Kylian Mbappe, sort of their last Galactico superstar that they had left. And it's ironic that that was the team that eventually won it.
One final question. Just want to ask you, looking ahead, you have to choose between the Ballon d'Or for Ousmane Dembélé, people making his case saying this helps strengthen his case, or PSG winning the UEFA Super Cup. They take on Tottenham, the Europa League winners. Choose one or the other, Ballon d'Or for Dembélé or the UEFA Super Cup. Which one do you want?
Not to be arrogant, but I don't think Tottenham are going to pose much of a challenge in that match. I really would rather Ousmane Dembélé win the Ballon d'Or. Now, we've had Ballon d'Or winners in the past, George Weah in 1995, I believe. And then, Lionel Messi with he won the Ballon d'Or, a couple of years ago when he was at the club, mainly because he won the World Cup with Argentina. This would really be, the second time where a player wins the Ballon d'Or purely by their performance at Paris Saint-Germain. And Ousmane Dembélé was a player that had a lot of potential coming out of Rennes. It didn't work out at Barcelona. They sort of left him, in the cold, and PSG were able to pay his release clause 2 years ago, and he is transformed into I think the real leader of this squad in terms of emotion and spirit, and just the ability to transform yourself from sort of somebody that maybe wasn't thought of as one of the best players in the world to now being one of the best players in the world. I think it would be a real testament to PSG as a whole to see him lift the Ballon d'Or.
All right, Mark, thank you so much.
So that would be my answer. Yeah, I'd rather him than that. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Marc Damon joining us from New York. Thank you.